Hey, are you considering a home theater for your basement? It's really fun to think about. I did it as sort of an experiment. I didn't know anyone who had one, and so I was kind of winging it. I was doing it on the cheap, and I was curious to see what this would work like, and if we would use it, things like that. In the process of doing that, I discovered something we absolutely love, and it's been really, really fun. And I think I've got a lot of tips I think I can give you. So, how do you start? Well, let me give you a hint. You don't start by buying a projector. That's literally the last thing you buy. The first thing you should do is you really have to start with bare studs. If you've got drywall up already, you're really going to struggle with this process. And let me explain why. First of all, you've got, if you're going to do it right, you're going to want speakers in the walls. You don't have to do this, but it's highly recommended. And to do that, you're going to have to fish a bunch of wiring through the walls. Here's my side channel. Here's my center channel. Another side channel, and I've got 4 more speakers on the side and the back. Basically, we've got a 7.1 system, which is my opinion is the minimum you want to even consider. There are 5.2 systems, and I don't even know why you bother with that. Basically, if you're gonna go this level, if you're gonna get a projector and you're gonna try to do this right, 7.1 is the minimum for Dolby sound, which is sort of the standard that the movie industry uses. I strongly recommend you just go 7.1. Let's see. So there's a lot of things you want to consider. When you're putting speaker wire in your wall, first of all, you want anything that goes inside your wall. There are places you can skimp in this project. Speaker wire, anything inside the wall is not where you skimp. So you use good quality 14 gauge all copper wire. Don't fall for the stuff that's aluminum wire that they cover with a tiny amount of copper. Don't do it. Get 14 gauge all copper. Not very expensive in the grand scheme of things. And it's basically future proofing your system. Another thing, when you put speaker wire in your walls, you don't want it to be right next to any power, essentially. What it'll do is it'll create static on your system, it'll create noise, and it'll buzz, and it's just a bad deal. So sometimes you can't avoid having it go near regular power, but if you do it, you should go through it at right angles. Essentially cross directly over a power line, a regular 120 volt line. But you don't ever want to run power in the same bay right next to one another. Let's see, other things to keep in mind. If you're going to run HDMI cables to a projector, which I have, I'll show you that in just a second. HDMI cables in the walls, you're taking a risk. What happens if that HDMI cable goes bad? How are you going to deal with that? Are you going to tear out the drywall? No. The solution is you run electrical conduit for that. And I've got some flexible conduit in the link description below. I strongly, strongly recommend. It's like 35 bucks, but it will save your bacon if you need to fish that wire through, or if technology changes in the next 10 years, which it will. As a part of this process, you want to create something that's fun and inexpensive right now for your family, but you want to future-proof it. So in 10 years, you're not tearing this whole thing out again and starting over. And is what I've done. This system is probably 4 years old now, so I feel it's pretty bulletproof. I'm happy with it. I know what I like. I know what mistakes I made. There weren't many, but I did make a couple. So let's go through and kind of talk about those. And I have links to all the products that essentially I recommend, either I used directly or that I recommend in the links below this. And everything's from Amazon, so it's easy to get. Not to say you can't find cheaper prices elsewhere, but for the most part, Amazon is pretty hard to beat price-wise. Let's see, other things. So when you're starting this process, bare studs. If you don't have bare studs, you're really not going to be able to do this. Because you've got to get power various places, you've got to get your speaker wire various places that you're not going to be able to snake wire to. So right off the bat, you got to figure out a couple things. Where, obviously, is your screen going to go, and how big can you fit? I don't think you should even screw around with this process if you can't fit a 10-foot screen, which is 120 inch. Mainly because if you're going to go less than that, don't go with a projector, just go with a standard TV. And just go with a 65-inch TV, you can get them for relatively cheap now, and just go with that. If you're going to go projector though, I think 120 is the sweet spot. Figure out, first thing first, where's your receiver going to go? Your receiver is really the heart of the sound of the system. Figure out where it goes, because you're not going to be able to move it. So with ours, it was obvious. This is our basement family room. It was going to go here in this corner. And so all of our wiring comes down to that. Let's see. Next thing, where's your seating going to go? I mean, obviously you don't have to have the exact couch that you're going to use, but for the most part, figure out where the center, where you're going to sit. If you're alone watching a movie, where are you going to sit? That matters, because from that's how you position your screen. You want your screen exactly to be perpendicular to that, and you need to know where you're going to sit so that you can position your rear and side speakers from you. Again, I mentioned 7.1 is, in my opinion, the minimum you want to go. 7.2 is awesome, but I wouldn't pay anything extra for it. Figure out your wiring. Again, 14 gauge speaker wire, all copper is important. Have really good 12 AWG power in your basement if that's something you're going to do. It's important. You don't want to be blowing breakers. Projector it doesn't use a lot of power, but you don't want to be blowing breakers. And the very last thing you do in this process is choose your projector and your screen. Those are both something easy to change out if you make a mistake, and so that's important. All right, so I'm gonna step behind the camera and I'll show you kind of the process that we went through. Okay, so everyone wants to start with the projector. Mine is a ViewSonic Pro 8200, I believe. I paid about $600. That is apparently the sweet spot in projectors. You can pay a lot more than that. You can pay less. There's really only 4 brands I would consider. ViewSonic, BenQ, I don't know how to pronounce that. Excellent brand though. Optima is another good one, and Epson. I would not go with any no-name projectors. You can get a good quality projector from those 4 brands, and that's where I would stay. It really doesn't matter which projector you choose necessarily. The criteria are at this day and age, it's got to have 4K pass-through. It doesn't have to have a 4K screen because you're going to pay a fortune for that. 4K resolution, but it's got to accept 4K in this day and age. Mine doesn't, but that's okay. I don't have a reason to upgrade. But you want a 1080p resolution. That's standard HD at this stage, and you'll be fine with that. And let's see, other things that matter is when you go to choose the projector, you're going to have to look at your throw ratio. You're going to have to look at how far away it's going to sit from your screen, some things like that. But the criteria is it's got to have 1080p. The projector I link below in the links is an Optima, I believe, and it's an excellent quality projector for the price. I highly recommend it. So anyways, go that route. Other things you will need. This isn't sexy to think about, but you need power in your ceiling, right? This is why you have to have bare studs. You got to get power up there, and you've got to get HDMI. And then the other cable, which is that one, is standard coax cable, because my daughters occasionally like to pull out their old VHS tapes. And so we have an old VCR that we sometimes plug in. You don't need that. You do not need coax to your ceiling. I have it, but you probably want at least one HDMI cable, and you want it in conduit so that if it goes bad, you can snake a new cable through. All right, so that's the ceiling. Figure out how that's going to fit. With ours, I arranged it so that it slides just under the bottom of that beam and hits the wall right there. So that works great. Other things you need to keep in mind as you do this. Okay, receiver-wise. So I have a Denon receiver. Highly recommend Denon. I'm just really happy with them. So the criteria you want there is you want 4K pass-through. Don't go with any cheaper than that at this point unless you get it used, unless you get it really cheap. So find one that has 4K pass-through. You won't be using 4K probably, but you want that option down the road. Find one that has Wi-Fi. This receiver is the AVR S700W. It was relatively inexpensive. You can get a good quality Denon receiver that has all the things you need for a little over $300. Don't skimp and go with anything less than that. It has to have 7.1 capabilities. It's got to have 4K pass-through. Those are the 2 things that are critical. Be sure to get a nice Roku unit for streaming. Get the Premiere unit, I believe. That's the one. I'll explain why in a minute. Behind, this is a critical step that most people don't think about, right? You need to have your speaker wire come back to a single focal point, and that needs to be behind your receiver, and that's what we have there. So that's a wall plate that has 2 HDMI connections, that has your links to your 6 channels of surround sound, and I'm sorry, 7 channels, your center and your 6 paired speakers, and then you've got to have good quality power back here. Get a good power strip. This is kind of a mess back here, but you know, it's just because it's hidden. So anyway, things to think about. Let's see. Next, when you're talking about speakers, let's talk about speakers. Okay, the heart of your speaker system is going to be your in-wall speakers. There are places you can skimp here. I'll be totally honest with you. When I was installing this, my wife kind of tolerated this idea. We had an empty basement at the time, and so I told her what I wanted to do, and she said, yeah, okay. And she also knows I'm cheap, so I wouldn't blow a bunch of money. So what I did is I got decent quality. This is a decent quality center channel speaker. I think I spent about $100 on it. I don't skimp on your center channel speaker. Get the best quality center channel speaker you can afford. Next, your side channel speakers are also critical. This is where the noise from voices comes from. Critical stuff. Get good quality ones. I went with a relatively, I went with the best quality of an inexpensive brand, and I've been moderately happy with that. I wish I had gone with Yamaha. Looking back and how much we enjoy this system, I should have gotten better speakers. I could upgrade, but not probably a critical step at this point. Anyway, we're happy with it. I could be more happy. So you need one good quality center channel speaker, which is this one right up here. You need 2 speakers on each side of the screen. Again, you got to kind of decide what size screen you're doing, because you need to know where the speakers sit, right? And you need to get wire to them. So kind of a big deal. Next thing, you want to center-proof, or you want to future-proof this. So right now I have a projector, right? 10 years from now, I guarantee I will not have a projector. Technology is changing fast enough. I will probably have some ginormous TV that rolls up and hangs from the wall and is dirt cheap. And so really what you need is, so that my screen is made of spandex. You can tell that by pushing in, right? But what's behind here is, hold on, I'll show you. It's dirtier than I would have expected, but I guess maybe I should have paid attention to that. But I've got power coming back behind the screen. I've got power. You'll notice I have conduit coming in. I've got a fish, something I can pull cable through. And the point of this is I can change out this projector, and I can put a giant regular TV screen someday down the road if I need to. And it lies flush with the wall, and so everything back here is future-proofed. Didn't cost very much to put in. Highly, highly recommend it. So give that some thought. Okay, so let's talk about screens. Again, this is really the last thing you need to purchase, but you also have to plan on it. So this one I made myself, just with a poplar frame, because I'm a woodworker, so that was not a big deal. And like I said, this is kind of a silver gray spandex material. The reason for that is it keeps things flat. I have never been happy with this screen, and I don't know if you can see it, but there is basically some imperfections. Right here, there's some swirls in this spandex that drive me crazy. Most people have never noticed it, but I look at it every single time I'm watching a movie and it drives me nuts. The silver ticket the silver ticket screens on Amazon are probably a really good value, and I recommend those to people at this point. I'm not unhappy with the screen I made, but I also don't consider it my wisest choice. I was trying to be frugal, and I probably caused myself some frustration. Let's see. Here's one thing that most people forget to budget for, and that is a subwoofer. You need a big one. Trust me on this one. Don't go cheap on a subwoofer. Get the biggest, baddest subwoofer you can. This is a Dayton Audio 15-inch. So it's a hog, but it's also the bare minimum for this room. And it's what will give you the enjoyment from watching a movie on a big screen. It's what, you know, you feel the sound inside you, kind of a thing. This is the bare minimum. Do not get a 10-inch subwoofer. You're not going to be happy. Get a 15 minimum. If you can afford it, get two 15s. Go big on subwoofers. It makes all the difference. This is the bare minimum that I would recommend. Let's see, I'll show you the speakers behind now. Okay, now if you're gonna go cheap with any part of this system, this is where you can go cheap, and that is your rear surround speakers. Now with a 7.2 system, you've got two speakers off to each side of you. So one kind of off directly to your left ear and one directly off to your right ear, and then you've got two behind you. The quality of these speakers, frankly, does not matter. And so mine are dirt cheap. I paid 30 bucks a pair. They're made by Acoustic Audio. They're fine. I would recommend Yamahas at this point, but you know, this was me trying to be frugal and trying to see if this was something we'd even enjoy. We absolutely love it. So looking back, I should have probably gone better speakers, but I don't even know if I'd notice a difference. They're fine. Again, you don't care about the quality of your rear speakers. The quality of your front speakers is all that matters. Okay, went back to my notes to think about the lessons learned. With your screen. I've seen a lot of people that paint their walls. Don't do that. It just looks horrible. You're not going to get a smooth surface. You're going to get paint lines. It just doesn't look good. Don't hang a sheet from your walls. You're going to hate it. Unless you're on an ultra, cheap, trying to do this on $100. Just don't. A good quality theater is going to cost you probably $1,200 to $1,500 in everything, and it's well worth it. So get a screen that is either gray or silver. That will darken your blacks. You'll notice right now it's kind of washed out. That's because I have the projector in eco mode and because I have the lights on. But it looks great in the dark, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let's see. So that's really important, is to get a gray screen, 120 inch. That's critical. Go good quality wiring. Good quality HDMI cables are critical. Do not go cheap. And also put it in conduit, so if you do have a cable go bad, you can get a replacement in. In my opinion, the most important thing about your projector is not necessarily picture quality, because any of those 4 brands I mentioned are going to have good picture quality. Think about fan noise. This thing is going to sit right above your head. Find one that has a really quiet fan. The Optima I'm recommending does. Mine, a little louder than I'd like. To be totally honest with you, in a really quiet scene, you hear that fan. And you'll focus on the throw distance, so trying to figure that out. Check the specs of the one you're after. Figure out how far back it needs to be. Most of these have projectable or have adjustable throws, and so you can make it work for your room. But anyway, you want 2,000 plus lumens. 3,000 is better, but again, I have mine set on eco mode, which is a lot lower than that. Think about surge protection in here. You're putting a fair amount of hardware in your basement. Get a good quality surge protector. I use a whole home surge protector that's made by Square D Homeline, and it basically plugs into your panel, and it suppresses voltage surges for your whole house. For 50 bucks, it is cheap insurance. Everything you do on this project, think about future proofing. Think about good quality wiring. Think about getting, while HDMI and Wi-Fi are the standards today, maybe they won't be. So I've got Cat 5 connectivity to the back here, and that's a really important step. Reason being is that plugs directly into my Roku, and I don't have to worry about any Wi-Fi fluctuations or anything like that. I get just great streaming throughout. Another thing to think about, I mentioned getting the Roku Premier level. The reason that's important is if you're going to use this thing, you may have a spouse who likes to go to bed early or something like that. Get the Roku unit that has the headphone jack. You plug a set of iPad or iPhone buds into it, and I can watch my big screen movie without waking up anybody in the house. Because let's be honest, this system that I'm outlining is relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things, and it will shake the house. It will wake up every single person in this house if I want it to. I'm not a loud listener, I'm not an audiophile, but if I'm watching Star Wars, I've got this thing, I've got it loud enough to where I feel it. It's awesome. So give some thought to sound protection, essentially soundproofing the room. Now, soundproofing is not just closing a door. It's not putting fiberglass bats in. That doesn't work. Soundproofing involves, it's a lot of steps. It's a big deal. I didn't do it. Probably don't regret it because it's a huge amount of effort. But my version of soundproofing is that if I want to watch a movie, I put on my headphones and I watch it through my Roku. And that way I get the big screen experience. I get all the sound I need, but I'm not waking up the whole house. That's the extent. So I hope this has helped you. I hope you were inspired, frankly. Every person I've ever shown this to has gone home and either installed something similar in their own house, or they have, or they've, at least tried to figure out. So let me show you kind of what this looks like. So this is what it looks like. I've got the windows closed. It's Super Bowl Sunday, so it's super bright outside. And I don't even have this turned up loud, but it is amazing. This thing is huge. I can watch it at any volume I want. It looks amazing. I highly recommend you go this route if you're even thinking about it. We gather here as a family and absolutely love it. It's just a special thing for us. And my family, my daughters, they bring their friends over. They congregate at my house, which is much better than having my kids go over to somebody else's house that I don't know. This has paid off, in my humble opinion, in spades. This was a great decision. Highly recommend it. Feel free to ask questions. Again, I put all the links down below. I hope that helps you, and enjoy it.